This is Housebound. I'm Chris.
I'm Holly.
I'm Ashlyn.
I'm Greg.
And you're invited.
Welcome to Housebound, a podcast we made because we needed company. In it, we talk about things that are on our minds. And today, on our Season 2 finale, we are going to be talking about movie series finales. So last year, for our Season 1 finale, we talked about TV show finales. I think about that for a second.
Yeah, we've been needing company for quite a while.
Yeah.
That's a long time ago.
Yep. So, and this is now our 45th episode that we put out, which is crazy. And yeah, yeah, clap. So
It is a little nutty.
yeah,
It feels like an achievement for me.
yeah. That's 45 episodes you've edited.
Yeah, well, but no, I mean in the sense of that there's other podcasts out there that are on their triple digit episode numbers.
Yeah,
they do
for
like an
sure.
episode every week. I can't imagine having that kind of production time
crazy.
and quality put into everything. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's been fun, but it's been a lot of work, so for sure.
Well, I just thought maybe as like a quick refresher, just looking back, I just would go through kind of some of the topics that we talked about, and just a bit of a quick refresh. So we started out the year talking about resolutions worth making. Are they worth making or not? We talked about couch co-op versus online multiplayer games, had an episode on universal basic income. We talked about all the tattoos that we wanted to get, or didn't want to get, and the potential children that we might not ever allow to have tattoos. Talked about memory, and then the misrepresentation of STEM in media. That was an interesting one. Talked about breakfast, and then we proceeded to go out for breakfast, which was great. I think that was the best applying what we learned today to our lives.
We should do more food ones.
our only interactive episode.
Yeah, these feel like so long ago.
They do feel like
Yeah.
they're so long ago.
Also, I think if you were to like quiz me and ask me to like put these in order, I wouldn't be able to do it because some of them feel more recent than others.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure.
I can't remember which one we did like three episodes ago.
Yeah.
Like without looking, let alone the beginning of the season.
No. Yeah. So the other ones were we took an Enneagram test. That was cool. We had a short little message on COVID and vaccines, and then we spent the rest of the episode just giving nice chill sounds to listen to while you were in
In
the
your
vaccine
4-hour
line.
wait line.
That was good. Yeah, thanks, Chris, for curating that. We talked about blood, organ, and tissue donation. Had a whole episode on aliens, and if you haven't seen the description for that epised, you have to,
right.
because it is a whole ton of weirdness happening there. So, and then we talked about knowing a little bit about everything, but not a lot about one thing. That was one that we got to record all together, which was cool in the same room. So, and then the recent evolution of technology, that was another one that got to record together. And then reasons why you should have a library card.
Ugh.
And languages other than English, a conversation about how little we know. And that one had a cool opener. Then guilty pleasure TV shows and movies. We did our first Outbound pilot episode.
Yeah, don't hold us to that.
That was one of my favorites. That was great. Although I'm sure the editing was atrocious. So, but and then how puzzles shaped us. And then last time we did an episode on creativity. Is there any such thing as an original idea? And now we're doing one on, I have to pause and think about it.
Finales.
Movie series finales. So, yeah.
We've talked a lot about movies, and
We have.
I think just by default we navigate to talking a lot about movies. Probably every
movies
other
and
episode.
media.
Yeah. So this probably feels like an episode that's
Very on brand.
not
Very on
like
brand.
not very creative.
But we're working with that gimmick though. We're milking it hard. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, it's been such a, and this year was different too. Like we talked about interesting topics in the first season, I think anyways. And we talked about interesting topics in the second season, but I think we put a little bit more effort in this last year into, I guess what you would call like pre-production, which wasn't really always the idea, but the Outbound episode, we went out and walked, and that was like, that took maybe a little bit of preparation, a little bit of foresight to do that. And then for the Enneagram one, we pre-did those tests. For some of them, we did a little bit of research ahead of time just to kind of like...
Well, you know why?
Why's that?
It's because we exhausted all of the easiest episodes in the first season. So now we have to do more work to know things about what the heck we're talking about.
Oh, that's good.
Well, I think it was maybe just out of realizing what we had done in the first season and been like, oh, we can do that pretty easily. Quote unquote easily.
Yeah.
So why not like push it a little bit and see what other kinds of things we can do, and we don't have to ever do it again like that if we don't want to. But yeah. I think we talked in that episode, that first one, about New Year's resolutions, about putting effort into something, or not so much making like a firm commitment to some like arbitrary thing, but just deciding that you were going to do something and following through with that, and or just doing what felt most natural to you to make your life better. And I think we just defaulted to, well, how do we make the podcast better? So I think that it's nice to think that kind of stuck with us, but
yeah,
maybe we also just winged it. So I don't know.
Depends which one of us you're talking about.
Yeah. I think it did help though that we switched to more of like a bi-weekly schedule in releasing episodes, and weren't like doing kind of more weekly ones
every week. Yeah,
that has helped. Yeah. So because there were some stretches last year where we were pumping them every week with no breaks or anything. So yeah,
we'll see what happens for next year if we do a third season. Maybe we'll switch it up again. But I mean, everybody's got a busy life, so it's just about how to balance that, really, and to keep this being fun and not a chore.
Yeah.
So
exactly. No, good stuff. Well, I guess we can now switch to maybe talking about movie series finales that we've either enjoyed or have absolutely not, depending on how well they went. So, what's just like a memorable series finale that just, comes to mind, whether good or bad, but just something that, when you thought of this topic, what came to mind initially?
The first thing that came to mind was the Fast and Furious franchise, where there just is no finale. Every single movie feels like a finale because they do something bigger and better every single time. And then they never stop. And it's like that dinosaur movie series when I was a child that just
Land Before Time?
Yeah, that one. There's like 72 of them.
I think there's only like 12 or 13, but
might as well have been 72.
Exactly. When you're little, that's a huge number. So
I've got quite a few. I think my problem is that a lot of the movies, the series that I enjoy or am invested in, kind of tend to be rebooted after a while or continued after a while, and so you think of the finale being the third movie or the fourth movie, and then you realize that like 20 years later they made a fifth, and so then I kind of had to throw some of those navigated from my list of good to my list of bad, because that most recent one just wasn't that great, bad. Which is too bad. But the one exception to like a fully closed series that I'll make for this list, for an example of a good one, is the Infinity War and Endgame two-parter. And I make that exception because it does close off an arc of that franchise of Marvel movies. That movie as like or those movies together, which make a final movie. Like Star Wars held a special place in my like memories from when I was a child, and Marvel was a thing I got into around 2010, 2011, kind of when everybody started getting into Iron Man movies. And for some reason, I had these high expectations of Star Wars, and I had these high expectations for Marvel movies. But I'll just say that like the Infinity War and Endgame two-parter, if you want to consider it that, finale to that arc delivered way more than I think that the Star Wars one did. And that's just, I mean, that's my opinion. Not everybody might agree with me on that, but I felt not like closure, but I feel like a story has been completed and it was done really well. And and so that's one of the first ones that I think of, even though it's kind of it's an ongoing franchise. I make that exception for those ones. Yeah. So.
I think the Marvel one, they just like set things up well and intentionally, whereas in your comparison with Star Wars, the end of it, it just feels like they did not set things up well. So
yeah, too much confusion.
For it to have that payoff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I heard somebody kind of talk about it in the sense that J.J. Abrams must have never taken a drama or an improv class, because in improv, you always learn that the correct answer is yes and, not take that back, rewrite it, and do what you want with it. That's not how you continue it. That's not how you continue an interesting story. And that's kind of how people felt that episode 9 from Star Wars was just kind of, it wasn't a yes and. It was kind of like a no, like screw you kind of, like what you did to the last movie. And I'll go back and redraw the threads and kind of skip over that in-between movie. So I think that's, but anyways, you could go on and on about it. All that to say, Marvel, the finale for that Infinity Saga was A+, I think.
So I know Marvel has source material because they have the comics that they loosely base their movies off of. It's pretty loose and they can be pretty picky and choosy is what I know. Does Star Wars have any source material? Sorry, non-nerd here, asking an honest question.
So the
short answer is no.
Well, the short answer is that there was a couple of decades worth of continued universe building through books that had happened ever since what is now considered episode 6 came out. And that kind of continued the thread with the main 3, Luke and Han and Leia and some of their sidekicks and friends, kind of continued on into the future and did a lot of world building, and they didn't always necessarily canonically mesh up perfectly. But when it came time for Disney to launch more Star Wars, they kind of did what Marvel did, but Marvel didn't like retcon stuff. Marvel just went, this is our own thing, so we're making it our own thing. Yeah. Whereas Star Wars already had established 3 movies and now another 3, so 6 movies, and there was kind of a canon to things, and things were starting to kind of fall in line on the side of books and source materials like that. And so in, 2015 when episode 7 came out, they retconned everything that had been printed before for physical media, which was a huge bummer because there's hundreds of books and like there's video games and stuff that all kind of work into the canon. And they kind of went, that's great, but that's going to be considered like an alternate, like something that maybe happened, got passed down from generation to generation by word of mouth and mixed up over the centuries. And so now we're in this like new era of all 9 movies plus Solo plus Rogue One. Those are kind of canon. And there's some new books that have started coming out since 2015. And then there's like the cartoon shows like Clone Wars and Rebels and Resistance. Those TV shows and those movies and a few books are all that's canon now. So they kind of did something different, and they couldn't really say it was an alternate universe because Star Wars doesn't really work like that. There's there's no multiverse in Star Wars per se. So yeah. That's the very condensed but informed version of that answer. So technically, yes, there's source material. And when they borrow things like, villains, they pick half from here and half from here and kind of mesh it together.
If they do use it, it would be Frankensteining it together.
Yeah, whereas like Marvel, I feel like they use the source material a lot more specifically. Like they're like, we want this version of this character to be in the next movie. And then
like Easter eggs, like nods to the comics.
But in Star Wars, it didn't feel like they were using the legends very well. You know what I mean? Like all of those books for so long. And maybe that's because I don't know them very well, but it just kind of felt like they were like, oh yeah, we'll maybe nod to this one Legends character, but this is a whole new story and we're not going to take anything from the old printed stuff. Like,
to clarify, you're talking about Star Wars, not Marvel now.
Correct.
Okay, cool. Sorry, you switched from Marvel to Legends, and so yeah, for those who don't know, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like Star Wars seems like it has source material, but I don't really feel like they used it as source material the way that Marvel did. Like,
yeah, they're different.
That's why my short answer to that question is no. Like, they tried to make all new stuff, from their own brains.
Yeah.
It didn't work very well.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of movies that get made into those like really long epic series are usually either fantasy or action. I think all of them fall into like one of those two categories. So I had a harder time coming up with movie finales that I liked because I'm not a huge fantasy or action person. But I will say the first one that came to mind, epic finale, Princess Diaries 2, A Royal Engagement. So we start with Princess Mia Thermopolis Rinaldi, who just finds out that she is a princess in Genovia, has never been there, but she is a royal heir. And by the end of the second movie, she is crowned queen of Genovia. It's a full arc. They do a great job, other than the fact that they totally ignore the boyfriend from the first series. And in like the beginning of the second movie, she's just like writing a letter on a plane and was like, yeah, so much for him anyways. And that's all you get for like his end of plot. But it's okay because that was to introduce Chris Pine. So I feel like the sacrifice was worth it and then some. It's a great finale.
She didn't end up getting together with him though.
No. They're still together at the end of the second movie. They're just not married. Because if they were married, then Chris Pine would be king. But Chris Pine's a feminist and believes in Mia Thermopolis Rinaldi's goals to become queen. And so the laws are changed so that she can be single and still reign as queen. But they're still dating.
Okay.
So they'll date for the rest of their lives.
Well, no, they could get married later. It was like a purposeful point to not get married so that she could be queen. But they're together.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Epic movie finale.
Yeah. You're just on your toes the whole way through. So, yeah.
You're not on your toes. You're like leaned back and comfy the whole way through.
Oh.
It's amazing.
There's some drama, but it is not worth stressing over.
Yeah.
Ashlyn, are there any movies that are like from books that were like a series made from a series of books that are not in the epic fantasy or action genres? Like I was thinking of Hunger Games, but there's got to be other movies that were just made. Like
Princess Diaries.
Yep.
That was also a book series. I never read the books, but
yeah.
Wait, that's based on a book series?
Yeah,
it is. Yep.
No way.
I had no idea.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was thinking, like, isn't that like Grand Hotel?
The Grand Budapest Hotel.
Or Budapest? I don't know. And these are movies I've never seen.
Yeah.
But there are several of them. And I feel like they're from books, so maybe they had good finales. I have no idea.
They're just, Wes Anderson movies are all just standalones. Like, I don't think there's any that, there might be one that has a sequel, but.
Like, I know that they were going to make a movie of the Rosie Project at one point.
Oh, yeah.
It's been like half greenlit like multiple times. Ryan Reynolds was supposed to be in it. Now he's not. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's all just rumors.
Yeah. So I think if that ever did get made into a movie and then a series, then that's probably would be an example. So if 20 years down the road, if we ever return to this topic.
My other example of a fantastic movie series finale is, of course, High School Musical 3. They start off entering high school, doing their first musical together, and by the end of the third movie, they're graduating. It's the perfect end to their high school career. It's bookmarked beautifully. Those plot lines.
Do they all
seamless.
graduate?
No, some of them were
They
held
do
back.
all graduate.
Of course.
Yeah, none of them flunk.
That's unrealistic. That's
Oh,
crazy.
dear.
They spent all their time singing and dancing and not studying.
Singing and
They did
dancing
not
was
all
for
graduate.
credit. That's
All
why
right,
it exists.
fine. You don't need to know math. Just sing.
Yeah, I mean, to Ashlyn's point, I think most of the finales that I thought up tended to definitely be in that kind of like action, fantasy, sci-fi
Certainly.
genre,
Mhm.
for sure. Like, I mean, the first one that I thought of was just like The Lord of the Rings, like Return of the King, and just how like that's such a great finale. Like, there's definitely like some cheesy moments, especially now that it's been like 20 years since those movies
Mhm.
came out and how it was shot or whatever. And there's things that come up, but like the whole way through, you're just like, yes, you know, like this is a grand movie to watch. And when Sam says, "Come, Mr. Frodo, I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you," and then just lifts him up and like hauls him up, you know, it's so good. Anyways, but yeah, those I don't know, those movies, they're great, and like there's multiple different times where you think that the movie's gonna end and then it just keeps going. So yeah, it's a good one.
That one was on my list.
Was it on your list? Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Did you have any thoughts on it other than cheesy quotes?
Oh, I should have asked, was Princess Diaries or High School Musical on anyone else's lists?
No, of course not.
No.
No.
Incorrect.
I have not seen those movies. Although I know the butler guy from Princess Diaries because he's an excellent actor and in everything else. And in some other movies, he plays the exact same character, even with some of the same lines, which is ridiculous.
Oh, that's so fun.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't have anything great and wonderful to add to your opinions of Return of the King. I think what made it a great movie is the fact that those three movies were conceived as a whole. Like, obviously they have source material. So, you know, it's like, you know, the story and you can work with the story within the bounds of what people already enjoy. You don't have to add to it or create it as you go. But they were conceived as a trilogy. And so you don't have Deus Ex Machina at the very end that nobody saw coming, and everything was like written to be this complete story. And I think that when you have a full picture of the story you're trying to sell or you're trying to offer an audience, you set yourself up for a greater chance of success that way, because then you've thought through everything and how all the pieces go together. Now, that can't be said for everything. It's not like a rule. But like, okay, oh, well, like a good example of that is the Hobbit trilogy. Like, they wanted to do 2 movies. It ended up being 3. And so you have a third movie that, I mean, the movies are great. The movies are fine. But it's just not the same feeling. It's set in the same world. You have the same source material. You have characters and plots that are well known, but you didn't conceive of the story as a whole like that when you went to produce it. And so as a result, it just kind of falls apart. And so, and that's my opinion anyway, but that's why I think the Lord of the Rings trilogy stands out beyond or aside from the Hobbit. Like, you can consider them part of the same series, but they're 2 drastically different experiences.
Is the third one the one with Benedict Cumberbatch?
Yeah, that's the one with Benedict Cumberbatch as the dragon.
Ha ha ha.
As well as also Sauron. Like, he shows up in one scene. He plays the voice of sort of partially physical embodiment that Gandalf is trying to cast out of I don't know Lord of the Rings enough. It's some like old tower place.
That's funny.
There was a finale that I did think of that wasn't in like the action, fantasy, sci-fi genre. And it was one that was, when I watched it, like I felt that it was a good finale, but they did end up making a fourth one. But I don't really consider that a part of that. I feel like the third one closed it off well.
You'll just ignore it.
And that's Toy Story.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Where I felt like Toy Story 3 was a great ending because it's like him giving away the toys. Sorry, this is a spoiler for those who haven't seen Toy Story. Ignore what I said. He gets to keep the toys forever. And so, yeah, but it's essentially like Andy like giving up those toys and kind of giving them to a new kid to have, like the next generation. And while the fourth movie then deals with the next generation or whatever, I felt that was a good end to the whole like toys arc with Andy and even just Andy himself. And it was just like, yeah, it was just really sweet and,
Yeah, I feel like with that one, they almost shoehorned Andy into that third movie a little bit because he's around for the first and second movie and they're his toys. But like, even though he's the one that's missing them in the first movie, you're not really concerned about the kid. You're concerned about the toys. The second movie, again, completely like almost has nothing to do with Andy whatsoever. And then the third one, it's kind of like, well, we know how to animate people to not look creepy now, so let's put them into the movie.
They're not absolutely terrifying.
We don't have to just show his runners running around.
Oh, yeah. Like, kids and adults have always been kind of more in the background of all of those movies, for sure. But I just felt it was like a good closure, at least. But yeah.
Sure. Yes. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Are you a fellow creative and you're asking yourself, where did they get that absolutely banging intro music for their podcast? Because you want some for your own project? Well, we found it on Soundstripe, a royalty-free music licensing site with thousands of songs and updates to that library nearly each week. Even better than their high-quality content is their sound effects and stock video libraries that they've just added. And better still, you can get 10% off your first subscription when you use our coupon code Housebound10. That's Housebound10. That's it. Check out all that Soundstripe has to offer today by heading to soundstripe.com or clicking the link in the description. Happy creating!
I thought of Hunger Games, as I said earlier, but one of the reasons that I thought about it was because I've read all the books and then I'd seen all the movies, and the finale movie ended differently than it did in the books from the source material.
Mm-hmm.
And so that made me go, oh, that was interesting, because I actually like both finales in the book and in the movie. But they keep the same like main elements at the end of the movies. They just soften it up for audiences.
Cowards.
Yeah, a little bit. But there was a lot of backlash when the third Hunger Games book came out. Not everybody loved the finale of that. And so they did it for a reason, because they heard what people wanted and then they gave them what they wanted. But I just thought of that one because it's actually different. I've seen the story told in two different ways, or ended in two different ways. And I liked both of them, which is really interesting that you can have two separate finales and still be happy with both of them.
Yeah. I've always been interested to read those books. I watch the movies, and I'm generally not a huge fan of reading the books after I've already seen the movies. I can do it the other way around, but reading the book after I've seen the movie just kind of feels like a letdown, like it's the same thing, but slower and no pictures. Ooh.
Except The Martian. Now, this is off topic, but The Martian was a fantastic book that I read after watching the movie, and it was great.
Me too.
Because it added, and then it cut out one of the most tense scenes in the entire book. And they didn't have it in the movie. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. How is he going to get out of this? And that was after I'd seen the movie. So,
yeah.
So I might have to go back and read those now that it's been some time. So I've at least got some gaps in my memory. Mm-hmm. And if I know it has a different ending, that's enticing.
Yeah. And the other thing with those books actually is that they're written from Katniss's perspective. So first person, which the movies can't do that.
Yeah.
Right. So the movies do feel significantly different than those books. because you have no idea what's going through her head when you're watching the screen.
Yeah.
I mean, what's her face is a great actress.
Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah, Jennifer Lawrence. And she gives you an excellent portrayal about what should be happening in Katniss's head, but nobody's telling you outright. So it might be a different experience for you.
Y'all like National Treasure too?
Those movies are so good. Oh, that makes me want to rewatch them.
They're so good. Great movies. The first one I saw for the very first time at a youth group event, and it was just a movie night. And I had no idea what the movie was. I knew we were watching National Treasure. I'd never heard of it. Didn't really know who Nicolas Cage was. I think that was probably my introduction to Nicolas Cage as well.
Oh yeah.
That's its whole own beast. But and the second movie, I think the reason that the second movie I think is great is because people wanted more of the first movie, and they gave them more of the first movie. It's like, go on another treasure hunt. We don't even care if it's that realistic. Just find some treasure in the States somewhere, please. And the writing for the comical relief is really great, and just playing around with the characters. It's one of those series. I mean, it's only 2 movies, but it's one of those where you can kind of do whatever with the characters. In between the movies they got divorced, or in between the movies they had 3 kids. Who cares? We just want to see the main characters go on a scavenger hunt. Just the whole scene with him in the belly of that frozen ship in the middle of the Arctic, trying to figure out what Iron Pen is, and it's just such a classic scene, and all of the scenes from those movies. And then the sequel, they have Ed Harris. They're like, hey, Ed Harris, do you want to be a bad guy? And he was like, yeah, I'm always a bad guy. Sure, we'll put you in. Great movie, great casting. No regrets.
You guys should know that Chris and his sister can quote every single line of both of those movies, and do so often.
Yeah.
Nice.
The sidekick in that movie, Riley Poole. Frick, he's so funny.
Yeah. Do you know what the tax is on $1 million car? $2 million.
Oh dear.
Golden movie.
Yeah. So good.
On a less adult side, How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World.
Oh, yeah, that was good.
So good.
I've never read the books, so I don't know how it holds up to the source material again. But it was, in my mind, it was such a different movie from the second movie. And the first movie kind of stands alone in my mind as you watch that movie and don't watch any of the others and you're totally fine. It's such a great movie. But that third movie really just caps it off and gives you all the feels that you wanted to feel, and resolves the world the way that you want it to resolve. And great movie. Kids movies can be pretty good too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I feel like the opposite example to How to Train Your Dragon is freaking Shrek.
Oh no,
I was gonna say Shrek should be one of the good examples.
They made a stellar first movie that was a cult favorite. Everybody quotes that movie constantly. All the millennials love it, and it's it's part of our language now is Shrek. And the second one was fun, but eh. And then the third one was why? And then they made more, and I am not following anymore.
Yeah.
Agreed.
It's they hit gold, and then we're like, oh, is that money I smell? Oh.
It's the same thing though with the Ice Age franchise.
Oh, I love those.
Really good.
I love them all.
They kept making them though. I don't know. I didn't feel that they got better as they made them.
Mm-mm.
Oh, I also don't feel like they got better. They definitely got worse. I still love them.
Kind of on the note of similar to Toy Story, where you have an ending to a series that kind of closes nicely, and then they decide to make a 4th movie and a 5th movie and all this, whatever. Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yes, I was just thinking about Pirates.
Where Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As
And
you
that's
were
one that
saying
we've all
that.
seen. We all watched that together because Ashlyn, you hadn't seen them until that time when we marathoned all 3 of them, I think.
Yeah.
Just the first 3, yeah.
Yay.
Ashlyn has problems with the third one specifically.
I got
but
big
anyway,
problems.
Big problems.
I'm Ashlyn, and I've got big problems.
Oh dear. That movie does have big problems, but I love it anyway, and I love that they made
so
more of them
good.
because all I want is more pirates in my life all the time. But not real pirates because slavery is terrible. So, no
Thanks
thanks.
for clarifying.
Yeah, just the fake pirates that they give me at Disneyland.
Oh dear. I want more pirates
Yeah.
and more dragons, but no slavery and no eating people.
Yes, agreed. Perfect.
Holly, did we watch the first Divergent movie together?
Probably. I read those books.
Yeah, I didn't watch the rest of the movies, but that one falls just immediately into my list of like very questionable or bad because
They didn't even make the finale.
yeah, they split the third book into 2 movies
Yeah.
and then
first
nobody
one did
watched the
so
first
poorly.
part, so they're just like it's over, I guess.
So the finale was not a finale. Thanks.
Not a finale. Yikes.
Yeah.
We
I think they had even tried to figure out because they didn't want to follow Hunger Games exactly, so they didn't want to do Allegiant Part 1 and Allegiant Part 2. I think they had come up with a name for the 4th movie
Yeah, I
that
think
wasn't,
so.
because there's only 3 books, but then just completely abandoned it. So I don't know if you're a fan of that series. Let us know how it ended, because it seems like it probably ended bad.
The thing is, then they had the gall to actually like put all of the DVDs into like a collection to call it like the Divergent
Box set.
collection and then sell it. And so then the poor person who buys it not knowing that it's actually
It
not
doesn't have an ending.
it doesn't have an ending. Like, really? When I saw that, I was just like, that is so ridiculous. Like, you
Yeah.
have to be honest and be like, like, caution will not have a satisfactory ending. Some sort of a label on there.
Oh,
Anyways,
dear.
so, but I guess they had
Watch
to get
at
some
own
money
risk.
from it.
Yeah, they'd never sell it that way for sure.
Yeah.
There's another movie that Maze Runner. Maze Runner
Oh, yeah.
Mm.
had movies and books, and the movies ended significantly different than the books. It actually
Mhm.
veered off in the middle of the second book / movie.
Which might have been a good thing.
Which I think was a good thing because I was significantly disappointed by how those books, where they went and how they ended. But I don't even remember which ending is the movie ending because I wasn't impressed with either of them.
The ending from the books is the one where he's like the cure, or she's the cure,
Well,
or something like that.
They have to take his brain out and use
Yeah.
it as a cure. Yeah, but
And like, you've been the cure the whole time. And
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I didn't see that coming from page 2 of the first book.
yeah, exactly. But they had to kill him, and then they didn't, and so the whole world suffered.
Classic.
Stupid.
Worth it.
Wow. What an uplifting series.
Yeah. Yeah. Your individual rights are better than the whole of public. But that's maybe a little too close to real life. So let's move on.
Yeah, let's veer right away from that topic. Spider-Man 3 of the Raimi trilogy.
Oh,
yeah.
no.
I was thinking that too.
Significantly disappointing compared to a follow-up from what is almost universally accepted as the greatest Spider-Man movie of all times, Spider-Man 2, with Tobey Maguire. And I'm blanking on Doc Ock's name. I can't for the life of me think of the actor who plays him. But great performance, great writing. I think I had read somewhere once that there weren't supposed to be as many villains in the third movie, but the studio kind of stepped in and did its thing where it goes, there needs to be bigger battles, and studios just can't leave it alone. And there was a plan for a 4th movie that would have helped split across some of those big bads and not make them all such a like shoehorn in, oh, it's the Sinister Six at the last minute kind of thing. So but yeah, so that series for me kind of goes 1 and 2, and then 3 hits a low. So I like 1 and 2. I don't mind 3, but I always, when I think about the trilogy, I'm always like, oh, 3, Come on. Like, disappointment. So it sits on my list of bad.
Yeah.
I only ever saw 1 and 2, and I have no regrets.
Yeah.
You're doing just fine. I got the collection when it came out on Blu-ray, and it comes with like the it's like a let's see.
Did you get the one that had like the 2.1, like the extended?
Yeah. Well, there's a
cut?
2.1, so there's an extended 2 cut, and then there's the Spider-Man 3, the editor's cut. So that's where it does fix some of the issues, but that movie is beyond fixing. So
yeah.
He tried his best. Twas not a better necessarily. It didn't redeem it. So yeah.
So I'm just thinking about like 5 minutes ago when Greg was like, they should really give warnings on collections when something is terrible. And can you imagine if they actually put a label on it that's like disappointing ending with a exclamation mark or no ending to be found?
Like a sticker on the front of the DVD case.
Yeah.
They should let you know.
Characters that will never return.
We kill off your favorites.
And then the Amazing Spider-Man series pack where it's like, we didn't make a third one even.
Yep.
Batman, the Christopher Nolan Batman series was on point with its finale, I think. I love that whole series. But I love that he walks away at the end. He's done. Like, it's just so perfect because he doesn't have to be done, but that's what he needs for his life. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was also on my list as like The Dark Knight. The second movie was for sure better than the third movie,
Agreed,
but the third movie was still great.
Yeah.
And that was one that we also all watched together in marathon. Yay, Ashlyn, you made it through.
I survived. Neither of those were bad necessarily, but
just not up your alley.
Yeah.
Although you guys made up for it by watching all of Downton Abbey.
Ah, yes.
In like a short amount of time, might I add.
That was a true marathon.
Very quickly. Yeah.
You guys powered through that series so that we could watch the movie, which was great.
Isn't there another one now?
It was supposed to come out this Christmas, but it's been pushed now, so it's coming in the spring.
Okay.
So we have to rewatch the whole series together.
Absolutely not.
It's like the Marvel movies. There's the same amount of hours of content to watch through. Man.
Is there actually?
So, there's probably way more.
Okay.
But there's a lot of hours of content if you want to watch all of the Marvel movies and the Marvel TV shows for the ending of this next saga.
Yes, that's fair.
So
we're gonna have to rethink our marathons going forward.
Well, we might just break it up.
I think something that we realized last season, so like our finale, part 1, was that it's incredibly hard to deliver on a finale that fans are very invested in. It's not impossible to do it, but for something like Lost, it was so split at the end. For something like Toy Story, like, it's a company, they need to make money, so they're going to make movies that align with where they make the most money, and Toy Story is a classic and people love it, and so they'll probably just keep making minis and series and movies. There's probably another movie coming down the line, who knows. But when you've got a following that's so invested in it, and you have to try to deliver sometimes an original ending, sometimes something from source material, but you just have to like conceive of that in a way that satisfies everybody, it's going to be very, very hard. And so I think of like whatever they're planning on doing next for the MCU, they're going to have to kind of build it back up again and then give it a good ending. They can't just ride the wave of, we had 23 great movies, so we'll do 2 movies and then another big finale. Like, it's not going to work like that. You have to take your time. And that's hard for people like me who love to go to see the movies and are like, I don't want to wait 2 years in between every Star Wars movie. It's grown on me, the fact that there's now an episode 7. I just want to see it. Now I just want to see episode 8. Now I just want to see episode 9. I need the closure, whether it's good closure or bad, but
I do feel that more often than not, though, compared to TV shows, I think movies tend to stick the landing better. I think they do. And I think a part of that probably comes from either they can plan out all of their movies at once, whereas with a TV show, I think it's a lot harder to
Oh, for sure.
plan that, right? Because you don't know how many seasons you're going to get renewed for. And then as you go through, you might be like, oh, well, now that we've done this, that kind of changes how we originally planned our ending. So we're going to have to shift that a bit, And so I think it's just more challenging. And you also can get canceled at a moment's notice.
Yeah. So. But like the time, if you do have a series that's running for 5 years or something like that, like you could have people die, like literally in real life, that it's unexpected. And so like how do you make the ending that you were intending to make when one of the main characters is just gone, like something like that. So that's tricky.
Yeah. Has anybody seen the original Planet of the Apes from 1960s with Charlton Heston?
No, sir. No, thank you.
Great.
Not the original.
Great.
You can by all means go and watch it. Those are 5 movies, the first 1 or 2 of which are like good like movies, considered like they're classic movies.
Mm-hmm.
The last 3, they build on the world, which is great, and they take it in some interesting directions, which is also really fun. But it kind of sits on my movie shelf as one of those series that's like, I'd like to watch it for the sake of watching it as a series and like enjoying the whole story. But it's one of those ones that like doesn't quite stick the landing for me. And I think it's probably because by the time you get to the 5th movie, and you don't have some of those key actors in it anymore because the story's moved on past them, then you're just kind of left picking up pieces and being like, maybe we can make another movie with these threads that are left over. And yeah, I don't know. It's a fun series. If you get a hold of it, go and watch it. But yeah.
The reboot was great.
The reboot.
You think so?
Did you watch that trilogy?
Oh yeah.
We own it, I think, don't we?
So good. Holy cow.
Now that reboot trilogy goes a different direction than the original one went.
Yeah.
To an extent.
No.
But yeah, I'd say it's probably, in my mind, it's probably about the same. It's like meh.
For me, that was an excellent trilogy. It's in my list. War of the Planet of the Apes, fantastic. Yeah. The second movie I think was better than the third. The first movie was not as good, but anyways, I loved that trilogy, and there's themes that they bring out, and it's so good. And I watched it in theaters. It was great. I cannot get Ashlyn to watch a monkey movie necessarily with me. I think you watched the second one. Did you watch the second one with me?
Oh, I watched one of them at least.
Yeah.
Don't
and
remember
you were like,
which one.
Too many screaming monkeys in my face.
Thanks. I love a
fair.
good baby monkey, but not warring monkeys.
Yeah. So
warring monkeys.
Oh, loved that series. But
more for you.
Yeah, more for me. I'll take it. Last one I can think of was just like the Harry Potter series.
Yes.
And I did feel like that was a great, like nice completed, again, it's a fantasy series, but man, they did a good job. And they took it from books, and everything was just like, even like the movie adaptions were actually pretty good. And me and Ashlyn saw in IMAX the Half-Blood Prince, which was like the
number 6
sixth movie. And that was like, it's getting closer to the end. And looking back, I had thought that movie wasn't great, but we watched it. It was like, it was really good. And it was like
it was
funny
good.
and like, it was a great watch. So that whole series was quite well
The
done.
comedy in that series is something that progresses for sure over the movies, which was is kind of weird. I wasn't expecting that to be like a theme that they kind of settled on, but it lightens the movie, the tone of the movies a bit. So I think they needed that for sure.
Yeah, the Half-Blood Prince has that love potion in it.
Yes.
That they give to some of the characters. And it creates some of like the funniest moments. They did a really good job of writing that one.
Yeah,
it's great.
I also, that one follows the source material quite a bit better than some of the other ones from books that I've been thinking of. It not perfectly, because how could you ever? But yeah, I agree. That one was on my list that I thought of right away as well. Was Harry Potter. And I'm so glad. Sometimes I scoff at them splitting finales into 2 movies because I'm just like, oh, you're really milking it. Hey, like if you make a part 1, everybody needs to see part 2, even if it's going to be bad, because like Twilight, right? Like you started it, now you have to finish it. You know you have to finish it, even though the first part was terrible. But yeah, Harry Potter, they needed to do 2 parts and they did it well. And they tied everything up. But I think that the main theme that we've all been talking about is whether the story is written fully or not. Right? Like,
oh, for sure.
If you have a fully written story, people don't make bad ending stories into movies except for The Maze Runner, I guess. Right? Like, you don't choose something that ended poorly unless you're sure that you can make it better on film. Whereas if something doesn't have an ending yet, you're not sure how it's going to end, so it could flop, but you don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's probably where, like, chances more than not, movies tend to stick the landing, probably because of that. The fact that they usually pull from source material that has stood the test of time. So, whereas TV shows can't do that as much. So
Yeah.
No, well, that's good. Unless anybody had any other finales that they were wanting to talk about.
I'm sure we could go on for another hour. Like,
but it has already been an hour. So.
And it's already been about an hour. So, I mean, I'd love to keep talking, but then the edit will be a nightmare.
That's true.
Yeah.
Ashlyn, do you have a quip? Anything to close us out of the season 2 with?
No, I don't. But let us know if you preferred the season 1 or the season 2 Housebound podcast finale. Was the second one just a money grab? Let us know.
Yeah, if we really like knocked it out of the ballpark with this season 2 finale, and then we come back for a season 3, then it's just going to be disappointment. So
yeah.
But that being said, I don't think we really know what next year's going to look like. So, I mean, stay tuned with us as always. If we decide to move forward with some stuff or just on a much more infrequent basis, kind of haven't decided that yet. But again, and I said this last year, I don't want to just like give up on it. But if we can make something happen, even if it's not on such a regular schedule again, I'd love to keep doing it. So if it's something that you've enjoyed listening to, especially, definitely give us some feedback on that. Or just on even what kinds of episodes you liked hearing us talk about, or maybe you have a topic suggestion that you want to give us. We're totally down for any of that.
Chris, where can they contact us?
Oh yeah, I guess that's important information.
that Greg and I can't do for you.
No. It's been 2 years, but no.
You can find us on social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter. We post snippets from each of our episodes on Facebook and Twitter. And then we also will keep you up to date on if we're coming out with more episodes or a new season, or maybe we're doing a cross-country tour. Anything can happen. You can also send us voice messages wherever you're listening to this episode. There should be a link in the description to shoot us a message, or you can go over to anchor.fm/housebound, and there's a little service on there and on the mobile app that lets you leave a 1-minute voice message for us, and we'd love to hear from you. You can also always email at us at thehouseboundpodcast@gmail.com.
I really want to know what a Housebound podcast tour would look like. Because I know we're pretty small, so I think it would be like, Housebound Podcast, now hitting up Langham and Estevan.
Or it just might be just like coming to a city near you, which would just be Saskatoon. Yeah. Where all 5 of our listeners are.
We'll just rent a room at the library.
Yeah.
We still have to do that.
Yeah, we got 3 extra chairs. First come, first serve.
Okay, our next outbound one could be us going to the library.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
You guys are already planning more spin-off things without me. Yeah. Holy moly.
We should do, when the new library opens, an audio tour of it.
Yes.
This is Greg, Ashlyn, Chris, and Holly walking through the library.
Ashlyn and Holly. Look at all the light. There's so many windows.
And then somebody will be like, I heard your episode about the library tour, but there's just too much happening in it, and you shouldn't have tried to cram it so full of activities.
Thanks for listening to us for another year. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Goodbye.
We're so awkward.